In this lesson, we'll talk about police encounters. We'll look at traffic encounters from different points of view, and then we'll talk about what should happen at each stage of the stop. So, you're driving along and all of a sudden there are flashing lights right behind you. You're being pulled over. In the best case scenario, you'll talk to an officer for 10 minutes and then you'll be on your way. In the worst case scenario, you could be arrested or even shot. How you act and what you do plays a big part in which scenario you will experience. Let's look at it from the point of view of the police officer. Now, he didn't pull you over for a friendly chat. He pulled you over to decide if you did something wrong. If he decides that you did, he'll give you a ticket or he'll arrest you. If he feels threatened in any way, he'll do whatever he has to protect himself. Let's look at it from the point of view of the person stopped. Your goal in a police stop is not to get this over as quickly as possible or to spout your opinions. Your goal in a police stop is to help the officer to feel safe and not threatened. That's important. Let me say it again. Your goal in a police stop is to help the officer to feel safe and not threatened. The facts are what they are. The situation will eventually get sorted out. Just cooperate and let it play out. There was a tragic example of what not to do in a police stop. A man was pulled over for broken taillight. Without mentioning his permit, he announced that he had a firearm and then began reaching toward his back. He didn't follow instructions when the officer told him not to reach for it. The officer shot and killed him. Both the man and the officer did things wrong, but it didn't need to go so tragically wrong. Let's go over the steps you need to take to resolve a police stop as quickly and safely as possible. Here are 5 things you need to do before the officer comes to your car. Pull over immediately and turn off the engine. Roll down all of your windows and turn on the dome light. This lets the officer see everyone and everything in the car. There won't be any surprises. However, if there's any reason why you don't want the officer to smell what's in the car or what's on your breath, leave the windows up with just a few inches to pass your ID out. Get your license, registration, and insurance card out and up on the dash. Then you don't need to be reaching for them and making the officer nervous. Press the record button on your phone's video camera and put it up on the dash. It won't get the picture, but it will get the sound. Last, put your hands as high as you can on the steering wheel and keep them safe. The officers need to see your hands. Here are 5 things to keep in mind when the officer is at your car. Be polite and respectful. Comply. Do everything the officer says. Watch what you say. Everything you say can be used against you. Don't give permission. They can't search your car without your permission unless they have a warrant or probable cause. Help the officer to feel safe by always keeping your hands where the officer can see them, by not making any sudden moves, and by telling the officer in advance exactly what you're about to do. Here's how it will go when the officer arrives at the car. The officer will ask you, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" You need to stop right there. If you say anything, you just admitted your guilt and your ticket or arrest is a done deal. You just say, "No, sir," or "No, ma'am, I don't." Then the officer will ask you a nice friendly question like, "Well, where are you coming from?" or "What are you up to tonight?" He's not trying to be friendly. He's looking for evidence. If the answer is clean, like, "Well, I'm just on my way home from work," then go ahead and answer. If the answer would be something like, oh, we're just out cruising after the bars close, then say, I'm sorry, but I can't answer that. If the officer asks to search your car, you must say no. There's nothing good that can come from a search. Your later statement like, I have no idea how those pills or that bag got under the seat. The officer's just going to smile as he puts you in handcuffs. Here's what you should do if you are asked to get out of the car. First, politely ask why. Then slowly get out, keeping your hands where the officer can see them. The officer may give you a light pat down to check for weapons. They do have that right. The officer may then ask, can I just look inside the car? Now you need to get firm by saying, I do not consent to a search of my person or property. This is where the officer will get to the point of why you were asked to get out of the car. It may be a sobriety test or whatever. You need to comply with whatever you're told to do. Here's how the stop is going to wrap up. If the reason for the stop is clear, the officer will give you a warning or write a ticket. Then you'll be on your way. If the reason is unclear or there are still suspicions, the officer is going to drag out the conversation trying to get you to say something that can be used against you. If you feel that that's what's happening, you need to ask this question. Officer, am I being detained or am I free to go? His answer will give you a good indication of what will happen to you. If you are not free to go, you need to use this phrase to any direct question. I invoke my right to remain silent. Then, by law, you can't be asked any more questions. Now, legally carrying a gun when you're stopped brings up some important issues. You'll need to make a decision about whether to inform the officer that you're carrying. In the earlier example, doing this the wrong way got the guy killed. So first, you need to know the state law on duty to inform. The law in some states requires you to inform an officer within 15 seconds of contact that you are carrying. In other states, the duty to inform is optional. If it's optional, when and how should you do it? Some people say that you shouldn't tell the officer. They say, why create an issue if you don't need to? Others argue that it lets the officer know that you're one of the good guys, and it may even get you out of a ticket. Well, the fact is, not all police officers feel the same about ordinary citizens carrying guns. Some strongly support it, while others are vehemently opposed. And you have no way of knowing what kind of officer you're dealing with. So, if you're in a state where you don't have the duty to inform, you may want to consider not offering that information during a routine stop when your firearm is well concealed and it's not likely to be discovered. But if you are asked to get out of the car, you must inform the officer while you're still seated, because when you get out, you will be patted down. If your gun is suddenly discovered during the pat down, don't be surprised if you end up face down on the pavement at gunpoint. When you are asked to get out of the car, say, Officer, I have a concealed carry permit and I am carrying today. It's in my front pocket. What do you want me to do? Well, this wraps up our lesson on police encounters. I used traffic stop as an example because it's the most common police encounter. But the same principles would apply to other encounters. The key points to remember are: be polite and respectful, watch what you say, and help the officer to feel safe by keeping your hands visible and avoiding sudden movements. In the next lesson, we'll talk about the legal use of force. I'll see you there.